This is the story of George Armstrong Custer and his favorite native scout, Bloody Knife, who on June 25, 1876, rode directly into the most iconic clash of the American Indian Wars to secure their places in history. Driven by Custer's relentless pursuit of political glory and Bloody Knife's burning desire for personal vengeance, the U.S. 7th Cavalry will confront a massive alliance of Plains tribes defending their sovereignty. Through the eyes of those who guided them and those who fought them, we witness how a clash of empires was fundamentally shaped by deep-seated intertribal blood feuds. Prepare to enter the valley of the Greasy Grass, where the lines between hero and villain are forever blurred by the dust of war. Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer, the celebrated boy general of the Civil War, is a man chasing the fading spotlight of his own military career. Denied the easy path to glory in the East, he views this campaign in the West as a golden opportunity to catapult himself back into the national spotlight and, perhaps, even the presidency. He commands the 7th Cavalry with an unyielding iron hand, dismissing any notion that the Plains tribes can stand against disciplined U.S. soldiers. In his obsessive pursuit of a singular, spectacular victory, he ignores the mounting signs that he is marching his men into an unprecedented trap. Bloody Knife, Custer's most trusted and highly paid Arikara scout, is a man caught between two warring worlds. Born to a Hunkpapa Sioux father and an Arikara mother, he was brutally abused by his father's people as a youth because of his mixed heritage. His childhood tormentor was none other than the fierce Hunkpapa war leader Gall, who later murdered and mutilated Bloody Knife's two younger brothers during an 1862 raid. Operating under a deep-seated personal vendetta, Bloody Knife has allied with the U.S. Army to guide Custer straight to the throat of his sworn enemies. The relationship between the volatile commander and his favorite native scout is a tempestuous mix of mutual respect and dangerous tension. During an 1874 expedition, Custer shot at Bloody Knife in a sudden fit of rage, forcing the scout to dive behind a tree for cover. Instead of reacting with fear, Bloody Knife openly mocked Custer's marksmanship, telling him he couldn't hit a wide tent from the inside. Despite these explosive encounters, Custer admired the scout's brutal honesty and unmatched tracking skills, rewarding him with a silver medal and extra bonuses. At 40 years old, Corporal Half Yellowface is the revered pipe carrier and leader of Custer's 6 Crow Scouts. Unlike the Arikara scouts from the distant Missouri River, Half Yellowface has hunted and waged war across these Montana valleys since his youth. His people, the Crow Nation, have watched the Lakota Sioux systematically invade their treaty lands and drive off their vital horse herds. By enlisting as military scouts, Half Yellowface and his men seek to leverage the power of the U.S. Army to expel the Lakota intruders and reclaim their sovereign hunting grounds. Long before joining the cavalry, Half Yellowface was celebrated as a legendary warrior of incredible daring. During a perilous raid into Shoshone territory, his war party found themselves completely stranded without food or mounts. Facing starvation, Half Yellowface risked a daring daylight infiltration of an enemy camp to steal their prized horses. His brilliant tactical success on that desperate raid cemented his reputation as a master leader who always brought his men home alive. From the high peak of the Crow's Nest, the native scouts spot undeniable proof of a massive gathering along the river. Bloody Knife and the Crow guides warn Custer that the village is larger than any they have ever seen on the northern plains. Custer, unable to clearly see the encampment through the rising valley haze, openly doubts his scouts' urgent warnings. He believes the native families are preparing to flee and declares that he must strike immediately before his prey can scatter into the hills. Convinced that his target is about to escape, Custer makes the fateful decision to split his command into 3 separate detachments. He orders Major Marcus Reno to take 3 companies and make a direct frontal assault on the southern end of the village. Captain Benteen is sent to the left to scout the southern bluffs, while Custer takes the remaining 5 companies to strike the flank from the north. This classic cavalry maneuver, intended to act as a hammer and anvil, will instead leave each isolated unit completely vulnerable to a massive counterstrike. As Reno's detachment nears the river, the true, terrifying scale of the native village is finally revealed. Instead of a fleeing camp of panicked noncombatants, they are met by a wall of armed warriors riding out to defend their homes. Realizing the extreme danger, Reno halts his charge, orders his men to dismount, and forms a thin skirmish line in the open valley. The Lakota and Cheyenne, inspired by Sitting Bull's vision of soldiers falling like grasshoppers, quickly swarm around Reno's exposed flank. In this critical moment, the narrative takes a sudden and disastrous turn for the U.S. forces. Bloody Knife, Custer's favorite scout and the anchor of Reno's forward line, is killed instantly right beside his commander. The horrific death of the scout, whose blood literally covers Reno's face, triggers an immediate and total psychological collapse in the major. Terrified and disoriented, Reno begins frantically screaming for his men to mount and dismount, completely shattering the command structure. The retreat from the timber rapidly degenerates into a total, disorganized rout across the river. Chief Gall, seeking swift justice for his slain family, leads his warriors in a fierce pursuit of the fleeing soldiers. Reno's panicked detachment loses over a third of its strength in a matter of minutes as they scramble up the steep bluffs. Left behind in the bloody mud of the riverbed, the severely wounded scout White Swan faces certain death as the enemy closes in. White Swan, the young Crow scout who aggressively sought combat, refuses to yield to his wounds. Despite having his wrist shattered and his legs severely torn by bullets, his warrior spirit remains entirely unbroken. He sits alone in the rushing water, firing his weapon with his remaining hand to keep the enemy at bay. His desperate, solitary stand embodies the fierce intertribal hatred that fueled this bloody day. Witnessing his young friend's plight, Corporal Half-Yellow-Face performs an act of extraordinary valor. He rides directly back into the jaws of the Lakota advance to rescue the disabled White Swan. Braving intense enemy fire, the seasoned Crow leader manages to drag his wounded comrade up to the hilltop defenses. This heroic rescue saves White Swan from the horrific fate that befell Bloody Knife on the valley floor below. On the windswept bluffs, the remnants of Reno's command merge with Benteen's fresh troops to form a desperate defensive perimeter. They have survived the initial onslaught, but they are now surrounded by a relentless force of Plains warriors. Suddenly, the distinct sound of military volley fire echoes from several miles downstream, indicating that Custer is heavily engaged. Despite hearing the frantic calls of his commander's rifles, Reno is too shattered to advance, leaving Custer to face his fate alone. Far to the north, Custer's desperate bid for personal glory reaches its catastrophic and final climax. Cut off from all support and heavily outnumbered, his immediate command of over 200 men is systematically dismantled. The tactical discipline of the cavalry dissolves into a brutal, close-quarters struggle for survival against crazy horses charging warriors. In a matter of hours, every single soldier on this ridge is killed, turning Custer's last stand into an instant national tragedy. The silence of the Montana night covers the scene of the Army's greatest defeat on the Western Plains. Custer lies dead alongside his closest family members, his ambitious climb to the presidency abruptly ended in the dust. The victorious Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho have won a monumental tactical victory, but they have also ignited a massive retaliatory response. This overwhelming triumph will ultimately seal their fate, as a vengeful nation mobilizes its full military might to crush their resistance. Following the withdrawal of the native forces, the survivors of Reno Hill are rescued by the arriving forces of General Terry. Corporal Half-Yellow-Face immediately constructs a specialized horse travois to transport his wounded friend, White Swan, to safety. He guides him 12 miles down the valley to the moored steamship far west, securing the medical care that will save his life. While the world would soon focus entirely on Custer's demise, the quiet loyalty of these Crow Scouts stands as a testament to true brotherhood. In the decades following the battle, a new struggle begins over how this historic event will be remembered. His widow, Libby Custer, wages a tireless, 50-year campaign to burnish her husband's image and secure his status as a heroic martyr. She successfully transforms a disastrous tactical failure into a myth of heroic sacrifice that captivates the American public. Under her influence, the complex history of the Plains Wars is simplified into a romanticized fable of frontier heroism. The romanticized myth of Custer stands unchallenged until the death of his protective widow in 1933. In 1934, Frederick F. Vanda Water publishes Glory Hunter, the first biography to depict Custer in deeply critical, unheroic terms. This groundbreaking book enrages old defenders like General Hugh Johnson, who fiercely dismisses the biography as mere muckraking. Combined with the cynicism of the Great Depression, this historical revisionism forever changes how the public views the Battle of the Little Bighorn. Today, the quiet winds of the Montana plains sweep through the sacred valley of the Greasy Grass. The Little Bighorn Battlefield National Monument now stands as a place of national reconciliation, honoring all who fought and died on this ground. From the desperate bravery of Bloody Knife and Half Yellowface to the tragic hubris of Custer, their stories remain etched in the soil. In the end, the road they did not know brought them all to this final, sacred resting place under the wide western sky.